All right, so we're looking at the number lines and segment notes. And I know this should actually be kind of moved down. That's the first question we're looking at. But these kind of questions are going to appear both in the in-class examples that we do together and then also on the concept check. Now, I do want to point out on this question, number 5, it says find the length of each segment in centimeters and inches. Of course, you'd have to use a ruler. And what I want to say is if you're a remote live learner, understand if you're running into an issue that you cannot print out a copy of what you need in order to make a measurement, or you're unable to use a ruler, we'll make other arrangements or find some way around that, okay? So we're not actually going to do this problem, but I just wanted to point that out that would appear at some point, and we'll make arrangements if need be. So let's look at the first question here. It says, what point is between the others? So we're trying to find the point that is between the others. Given the distance, okay, it doesn't have a segment bar, so we're talking about distance, the length. AC is 15, AB is 6, and BC is 9. Okay. Now the easiest way to think about this is using that the segment addition postulate we talked about earlier, and find the two distances that add up to be the third. If we can find those two distances, then the point they both share would have to be the middle. Okay. Well, notice 6 plus 9 equals 15, right? Well, if that's the case, then I know that AB plus BC has to equal AC, correct? 6 plus 9 is 15. Well, what point do they both share? They both share B. So B should be in between the two. So B would be in between the two. Number 2 and 3, find the missing measure. So again, we're given distances. It's given us that AD is 32, BD is 18, and we want to find AB. Well, they tell us AD is 32, and BD is 18. Okay, well, notice BD's distance falls within AD. So we could think about this logically for a second and say, if I take the total distance minus BD's distance, isn't AB the only thing that's going to remain? Well, yeah, we could take 32 minus 18 and we would find that AB is 14. Okay, well, let's say that doesn't make sense to you. Algebraically, by the segment addition postulate, we know that AB's distance plus BD's distance equals the total distance AD. AB plus BD equals AD. Okay? Well, we already know what two of those measurements are. We have AB, which is the unknown, BD, which they tell us is 18, and AD, which they tell us is 32. Well, if that's the case, it just turns into solving for the missing piece, right? Similar to when we were trying to get a variable by itself. I could subtract 18 over, and we get AB equals 14. So either way, we get to the same result. Now, on the next question, they tell us that FG is 7, and EF equals 5. And we want to find EG, the total distance. Now, logically, it makes sense that EF plus FJ should give us the total distance, right? We could just say 5 plus 7 gives us 12. Okay? Well, let's say you didn't understand that, and let's look at it algebraically. Again, using that segment addition postulate, we know that EF plus FG equals the total distance EG. Well, we already know what EF is. EF is 5. We know FG is 7. So together, those two have to add to be the total distance. Well, what's 5 plus 7? 12. So either way, we get to the same solution. Number 4, use the number line to answer the following. What is the midpoint of CF? Okay. Now, again, when we're talking about the midpoint, the key is it had to lie in the same line, and it had to have this equal distance going in those both directions. Okay. Or a quick way to think of this, we know that the two endpoints of our segment are going to be C and F, and somewhere in the middle is our midpoint. We don't know what it is right now, currently, but we do know that this distance, CM, to the midpoint, has to equal this distance, MF, the other side. Okay, so that's what we're looking for, and you could count. That is one way to approach it, but I think the easiest way to approach this is, instead of counting the spaces, using the same idea and thinking as finding the average. When you find the average of two things, You're looking for the middle of the two things, okay? Well, let's take C's value, which is a -5, and let's take F's value, which is 1, and average them. Add them together, and since there's two of them, divide it by 2. What's a -5 plus 1? -4. And then divide by 2, and we get -2, right? Well, this is a -2. What's the point that's associated with a -2? D. Okay? And we can check, we can count. 1, 2, 3 spaces over. 1, 2, 3 spaces over. So it is indeed the midpoint, okay? Because CD is equivalent to DF. They have the same measure, okay? And we talked about number 5. I'm going to move on to number 6. Okay, use a number line to find each measure. Okay, we want to find the measure of AJ. Okay, well, anytime we want to find the distance between 2 points, we have to subtract them, right? So let's take A's value and J's value. The best way to think of this is take the larger value, in this case J would be larger since it's positive, and subtract the smaller value, which would be A's value, okay, which is a -3. Now, don't make this mistake. We're subtracting a negative because A is a -3. So we're subtracting a -3. Well, what happens when you subtract a negative? It turns into addition, and we get 1 plus 3 is 4. So what is the measure of AJ? 4. Okay. 7. Three segment measures are given. The 3 points are named are collinear. Determine which point is between the other two. Well, this is similar to what we did in the first example. Look for the two values that add up to be the other value. What's 12 plus 5? 17. Okay, so these two, AB plus BC equals AC. Okay, well, since these two add up to be the total length, what point do these guys both share? They both share a B, right? So B is in between the others, between A and C. Okay. Number 8. It says we're given this number line. If RS, the distance of RS is 19, and RV, okay, RV is 71, we want to determine SV, this distance right in here. Okay, well, this is very similar to a question that we looked at earlier, correct? We know that RS plus SV has to equal the total distance RV. Well, what do we know? We know that RS is 19. We're looking for SV. And what we don't know in this case, or excuse me, the other value we do know, sorry, is 71. Well, how do I get SV by itself? I subtract, right? Okay, so I would have to subtract 19 over, and I'm kind of running out of room, but we get SV equals 52. Okay, so we get SV equals 52. Okay, so that's just another example of something we saw earlier. Okay, number 9. Use the number line to answer the exercises 29 through 34. That was just borrowed from the previous question. Let's just use this number line, and it says, is F the midpoint of BI? So on segment BI, this guy right in here, we want to determine if F is the midpoint. Well, one way we could approach it is count, okay? The distance from F to I is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The distance from F to B is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so it's actually two different distances. So is F the midpoint? No. That's one way we could do it. Okay, another way we could do it is finding the average like we saw earlier. I could average B and I. I can add them together and divide by 2. -6 plus 1, or excuse me, -6 plus 7 is 1. Divided by 2, which in terms of a decimal would be 0.5. Well, notice I don't have any value here for 0.5, so again, it is no. Okay? Then the last question here, and this is where a little bit of algebra comes into play, says in the figure below, G is the midpoint of EF. So we're given it's the midpoint. So if that's true, what does that mean about EG and GF? They have to be the same distance. Well, if those two are the same distance, what can we then infer about 5x and 30 minus x, which are the given measures. They also have to be the same. So what we're told here is since g is the midpoint, this distance of 5x is the same as this distance of 30 minus x. Well, if something is the same in mathematics, what do we do with those two values? We set them equal to each other. And we're going to use that here to answer question number 10, which says find the value of x. So we know the distance of 5x is equal to 30 minus x, which is the given measures we are given for EG and GF. We want to find x. Okay, well, how do I find x? I got to get x by itself. Remember, we got to find a variable side and a number side. Well, let's move all the variables to the left. Let's add x to this side. Even though we don't see it, what's in front of the x? 1. Okay, so this guy goes away and we get 5 plus 1 is 6x equals 30. Get x by itself, divide by 6, and we get x equals 5. Okay, so find the value of x. X is 5. Well, now that we know that x is equal to 5, how can I find EG? Well, remember, EG's distance is given to be 5x, right? Well, we know x is 5, so can't I just substitute this in for x? Well, yeah, and I can do the exact same thing to find GF. So all we're going to do is substitute those in. We know EG is equal to 5x, and we know that the x is equal to 5. So what is EG's value? 5 times 5 is 25. We know that GF is equal to 30 minus x, and we know that x is equal to 5. So what's 30 minus 5? 25. So notice that matches our thinking. If g is the midpoint, then these both should be the same, which they are. Okay, so EG is 25 and GF is 25. The last thing they tell us is to find EF. Well, we know that EG plus GF has to equal the total distance EF, right? This guy plus this guy equals the total length, right? Well, what did we say EG and GF are? 25, right? So what's 25 plus 25? 50. So 50 is equal to EF. So that would be my final answer.